Hi everybody, my name is Matt Radolec. I'm joined today by David Gibson, and we are here live in Las Vegas, Nevada for today's episode of State of Cybercrime. Are you excited? What's it like to be here at a conference and have the show live at the booth?
This is pretty nuts, man. I mean, we usually are from thousands of miles away, and now we're from thousands of micrometers.
And I feel like I just want to ask, well, where's everybody watching the show from today? And I think everybody's answer would be the Mandalay Bay Convention Center in Las Vegas, Nevada. But with that, let's crack right into it, right? We're going to go over some of our usual segments today. We'll start out with, is there any good news?
Love the good news.
We'll jump on a highway to the danger zone and talk about some threat actors and vulnerabilities that you might be concerned about.
Should be concerned.
We'll cover the most vulnerable vulnerabilities that are top of mind for everybody at the conference today. And then, as always, we'll have some time at the end for Q&A. How does that sound?
I think that sounds great, especially since we're not going to have anybody to come up and ask us any questions.
Oh, that's right.
So we'll make up some questions. We'll put ourselves
in the audience's shoes, and then we'll ask ourselves a question, and then we'll give them a free State of Cybercrime decal afterwards, right?
That's right.
Something like that. Whenever we kick off the show, we always like to cover good news. In cybersecurity, there's all this doom and gloom. Everybody's always worried about the next big thing that's going to end us all, a fire sale, a big hack, some data breach. But we often, as practitioners, never talk about the good things that happen. So at the start of the show, we always like to talk about some of the good news in cyber. And I think, we have a lot to talk about this week. First and foremost, most of the SEC agrees and has committed to policy to extend what we would call the breach notification requirements. So this dates back to 2011 when the SEC put out some rough guidance revolving that maybe if something happens, and it impacts your business, you should maybe report it. But it didn't really stick.
It's hard to believe that was only about 12 years ago that people started to think, hey, maybe cybersecurity is important for the functioning of a business, right? As we get more dependent on technology, collaboration, maybe if somebody has a breach, this could be a problem.
Right.
And in 2011, it really just started.
It just started. Right. But it really got accelerated in 2018 with the Equifax breach. Because in Equifax, there was long-standing circumstances of all the people and the financial impact, which got the SEC's attention, but it was also this case of potential insider risk and insider trading that really tipped the edge here, right?
That's right. It's kind of like, maybe I shouldn't sell stock if our company's had a breach.
Had a data breach. Maybe that's insider trading.
Potentially, the stock could go down.
Fast forward to 2023. Billions of dollars getting paid in ransom payments, data breaches happening every day, and the SEC comes out and says, not only do you need to disclose a breach, but you need to disclose a significant cyber event with materiality. I think the exact words were something like, the economy runs on electronic systems, there's been a huge rise in crime, you need to report it. This is essentially what this updated guidance says, right?
Yeah, and in fact, a lot of people are reporting and they are putting things in their public filings like their 10Ks and their 8Ks, but the standard hasn't really been established. So people are a little inconsistent in the way that they report their breaches. So, there was one recent breach where somebody said, we had a cybersecurity event. I mean, I think we're at a cybersecurity event. What does that mean?
Yeah, it's ubiquitous. When we report this, I don't think this is reportable. I don't think our CFO, because he actually had a lot to say about this. I imagine that CFOs all over the world at publicly traded companies are scrambling to say, when should we have done this in the past? Yeah. And what is the threshold for us to meet to do this in the future?
And not only do you have to have consistency in the way you report a breach, but you also have to show, all right, what is our expertise in cybersecurity? What are the controls we have in place? A little bit more consistency in the annual filings, your 10K, to begin with.
And maybe this is wishful thinking, but I hope this gives CISOs a voice in the boardroom. I hope this is a way for CISOs to connect with CFOs on something other than asking for a bigger budget, but to really focus on the risk to the business and the risk that we might have to report an event. Now, that's not the only good news, though, right?
It's not the
I feel like we could talk about this all day, almost as much as if we're going to host a webinar on this very topic with our CFO and our CTO, Brian Becci.
That's a great idea. Maybe we should, we're already
We are doing that. So let's ask our producers, in the post-production of the show to make sure our audience gets a link to that upcoming webinar on the changes to the SEC guidance.
That's right.
But enough on the SEC breach notification and all the changes that happened there. Talk to me about Let Me Spy.
So I wasn't really sure whether this was good news or bad news. It kind of feels like it's in between news, but I think there's some good news from it. But Let Me Spy was some Android software that let people spy on other people's on their phones, right? So it was marketed for parents that wanted to make sure their kids weren't doing things that they shouldn't do. Organizations maybe keeping tabs on employees, but in reality, a lot of people were putting spyware on people's phones that probably shouldn't have been. So now the people that were installing the malware have been exposed in a breach, but then I also think all of the
people that were victims have since also been
exposed.
And their data, so potentially location information, voice information, passcodes, logins, certificates. I would say it's good news in the sense that sort of this service is going to be interrupted and people are finding out of it, but bad news that there were victims to yet another data breach.
Yeah, from a privacy perspective, I think we're probably in a better place without this malware.
Another debatable good news versus bad news doesn't really fit in this segment is this OSINT tool, illicit services, incredibly cleverly named. I mean, I just got to say, hats off to the creator. The reason that they're shutting their doors is because criminals were using illicit services for, wait for it, illicit activity, or illicit services. Oh, I missed the opportunity there, David. Thanks for correcting me on that. So what was designed as an open source intelligence tool has mainly been used by criminals to gather intelligence on potential victims and even search through records of data breaches.
I feel like maybe it's a little late to shut the doors on illicit services, but the creator is now shutting it down.
I guess it does fit in the good news segment in the essence of now that the illicit services are shut down, that's good news.
I think so.
Well, let's jump.
Although sad for open source in OSINT practitioners, I guess, a little bit. But
I guess that means we got to jump on the highway to the danger zone, though.
We should.
Because there's some stuff we got to talk about. We've talked about Black Cat / Alpha V for 12 months, 18 months, 16 months.
Is that Black Cat wearing a black hat?
This Black Cat is wearing a black hat and a monocle, which I noticed you didn't mention. But they now offer to get the data that they're leaking via an API.
Much more convenient.
Yeah, so I guess if you're looking to do mass downloads of data that was stolen by Black Cat, why not use an API versus downloading it over the web? Now, it brings up questions though. Is it a secure API?
Can you exploit the API?
Can you exploit the API? Is it exposed via like a guest site in the Salesforce community? These are the questions that I'm asking.
I mean, do they have good configuration management, right?
Someone should talk to them about the security of the web app hosting the API that's got sensitive data inside of it.
That's right, and do the Black Cat users install third-party apps that can access the API?
That's right. And that's not the only news that came out. I also think that some security researchers found the loader that was used by Black Cat, and that's one of the ways they've been able to learn a little bit more about how the operation works. So a little bit of good news tied in with the fact that Black Cat Alpha V is still one of the most prominent ransomware actors, taking out, stealing data, exfiltrating, extorting organizations today.
And I think that's kind of, and might qualify as sort of an additional tool that the ransomware actors are utilizing, which is really shaming their victims.
Right.
Making it easy for people to, hey, you got breached, right?
It's moved much more from ransomware to extortion.
Yeah.
Right? Like, how can I get you to pay no matter what? You got great backups? Doesn't matter. I already got the data out. As I think, wise words were once said that you can't unbreach data.
I love those words.
I love those words too. So talk to us about NPO MASH.
NPO MASH. So this outfit is a Russian outfit that makes hypersonic missiles like the Kinzhals. And they got breached by North Korean actors, it looks like. Which may not be that surprising. North Korea wants its missiles too. So of course there's some activity going on that's always going to happen. But what's interesting about this breach is the way it was discovered. Apparently the people at NPO MASH that were investigating the breach accidentally posted a bunch of emails on a public site or a site about other breaches unintentionally that then security researchers found and said, oh my God, what happened here? This company got breached, and how did they sort of they breached themselves by looking at how this breach happened. So totally unintentionally, security researchers discovered that NPO MASH was breached by North Korean actors, but the breach was kind of a mistake.
Yeah, and I think when we often think about breaches in general, everybody rushes to threat actors and insiders, but forgets that I think the DBIR said something, it was something to 17% and 20%, we'll have to check the numbers on that, were by mistakes by IT administrators. Yeah. Not even just mistakes by end users, but specifically misconfigurations created by administrators without understanding the consequences of those actions. So it just kind of underlines something we always talk about, which is like the basics, right? The basic hygienes, misconfigurations, you got to be able to tackle that stuff and look for that. Now, 3 episodes running, we've covered Move It, and in every episode, you've had some movie reference that I don't understand. Yet again, is this John Travolta or I don't know, what is this from, and what does it have to do with Move It?
If we had users that were able to chat in the answer to who this person is, I still think it would be 0. But it's George Thorogood because of the song "Move It On Over," right? Oh. Teen Old Dogs Moving In, which I
don't know that one either yet. Just whoosh.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But we're running out of songs that reference Move It, I think.
Oh, because I like to move it.
Yeah.
You let me do that for a few episodes, but I can't keep doing that. Yeah. And the moral of the story here is Move It continues to have long-term impacts. The 0-day was disclosed. A remediation/mitigation has been available for some months now, but it seems like every couple of weeks we add another 100 or 200 victims to the list of people who have been taken advantage of due to this DMZ file transfer 0-day vulnerability.
It's 600 victims and counting. And the worst thing about this is the victim that hosts the Move It really hosts Move It to share data with so many other folks that the victims just kind of expand exponentially.
So the message here stays the same. Every single time we've talked to our audience, it's been, if a 0-day comes out, fix it. If a 0-day comes out, fix it. So talk about, what is this class wallet, permission setting switch? Why is this dangerous?
So this has been a story I've been following for a couple of weeks now, I think, and new stuff has come out. I think we have a conclusion to the story now, which is the Arizona Department of Homeland Security concluded that an employee was really behind this data leak of student information. So basically, there's this application called Class Wallet.
Okay.
And when somebody wants to get funding or a scholarship, right, or financial assistance, they apply on this system where you can get some financial aid. Now, what happened is due to a misconfiguration, people were able to see other people's applications. Now, these applications can have
financial records, sources of income, assets, hardships.
What kind of
why do you deserve it? Yeah,
exactly. And so a lot of sensitive information here, and it seems like there's been a lot of politics going back and forth. And there was actually an email or a letter
from the governor, right?
To the governor from the superintendent, saying, because the governor had said, you need to tell me what you're doing about this breach and what's happening. And this quote from that letter back to the governor is like, hey, the Homeland Security people are in my office and you sent them. I thought you would have checked about it. So we've had some issues with that, and we've also had some resignations based on potentially these employees. So a lot's going on with this. I think the moral of the story, though, is we need consistency on breach reporting, like the SEC is kind of mandating, because people are sort of spinning their tails, and it's not a good look.
We also need like a cultural shift as practitioners that breaches happen. Like, you're going to have security events, you're going to have incidents, you're going to have breaches. We need a culture around sharing what happened, how the threat actors made it possible, the 0 days, or the tools that they use. It's the only way that we as defenders are going to keep up. Right? We can only do so much research and find so much out on our own, or in the private intel sphere. And as a community, if we make more noise about that these incidents are happening, number one, it's going to drive awareness at board level down that this is something every company faces. But two, it's going to allow us to potentially try to keep up with attackers.
Yeah, and hopefully it'll stop some of the noise that happens around
Yeah,
these attacks.
yeah.
And
So-
we're going to have more.
Yeah, let's talk about some vulnerabilities, right? What is this bloody paper cuts? If this has to deal with some print management software, right?
Yeah, so there's paper-cut print management software that has a vulnerability in it, and now the bloody ransomware group seems to be taking advantage of that vulnerability. Right, so it looks like yet another vulnerability to patch. I'm always
But
worried
also a
about-
supply chain vulnerability, right?
Yeah.
Well, we're always worried about the inception here. If this company has hundreds or thousands of customers and they all use this software, and this software has an exploitable vulnerability, maybe it's sitting in the DMZ. We're just looking at another move it.
It really could be. I think the good news on these is not so much internet-facing devices,
okay.
but printers are I always worry about printers. I mean, how often do they get updated? What are they doing? How can you connect on them? And this is a host in your network that somebody can take over.
I wonder, do you think that the ransomware groups are sitting and waiting for a juicy target like this? That the bloody group is we got to do this paper cut thing. This has got to be us.
Well,
do you think that there's do they do stuff like this and talk about it?
I just think there's so much synergy between the ransomware group name and the software name.
So now that's not the only vulnerability that you should be worried, especially if you have kids and your kids do stuff like use Discord or Steam or Minecraft and all these other games. Earlier this month, there's this large-scale remote code execution vulnerability that was found with this bleeding pipes inside of Minecraft that would actually expose a user's token and their API token for Discord, which would then allow you to retrieve information, pictures, chat messages, and even potentially snoop in on voice conversations that often, the people that play Minecraft are usually young people, right? These are usually kids. So in a way, this vulnerability is a little bit more dangerous because it could lead to, child exploitation.
That's right. And I think you've been known to...
I've definitely done a little diamond mining in Minecraft, a little bit of redstone, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. I wouldn't want to get too much into it on the show today, but I know a little bit about Minecraft and redstone, maybe.
Maybe they were trying to listen in on your...
Maybe they were trying to get, well, not to totally shift gears, but since the Texera leaks, where we kind of found out Discord's not so private, not so secure, I've really stopped using it completely. Switched to other voice over IP, known, end-to-end encryption, not all this open API stuff. Because, Discord's a little dangerous. We could probably have a whole episode just talking about the dangers of using Discord.
Yeah, I think this one, I'm hoping gets patched if it hasn't already been, just so people's communications can be safe there.
Yeah. And I think that pretty much wraps it up live from the Varonis booth in Las Vegas, Nevada at the Mandalay Bay. Thanks for tuning in to State of Cybercrime. I'm Matt Radolec. This is David Gibson, the man, the myth, the legend behind all things Varonis. We super appreciate you tuning in today, and we hope to see you at the booth here in Vegas.
Thanks so much, everybody.